Hey guys, it's me, Rich. You're about to learn about a 9-story building 650 feet from the White House change hands, and the buyer's resume reads like a Chinese state security training manual. Today, you're getting the full story on Philip Qiu, a Shanghai-trained security operative turned philanthropist who now controls prime Washington real estate almost within eyeshot of the Oval Office, and what a former CIA officer says a building like that could actually be used for. And if you stick with me till the end of this video, you'll hear exactly why he thinks this is where the next 9/11 comes from. Let's get into it. All right, guys, welcome back to the channel where we are MAGA first, conservative second, and Republican third, with the goal of bringing you the most honest news coverage of the day. Okay, but here's a story that should probably be getting a lot more attention than it is. And by probably, I mean absolutely. And by a lot more, I mean somebody in Washington should be losing sleep over this right now. There's a 9-story building on 15th Street in Washington, D.C. Lovely old thing, 100 years old. It sits about 650 feet. That's not a typo, 650 feet from the White House grounds. It's called the Securities Building, and until a few weeks ago, it was just another slab of downtown real estate that tourists walk past without noticing. And then on July 21st of this year, the property records quietly changed. New owner, $8.4 million, purchased by something called the Philip Qiu and Family Foundation. Now, on its face, that's pretty boring. Foundations buy buildings. That's what foundations do. I mean, come on. But stay with me here, because the name behind that foundation is where this stops being boring and starts being the kind of thing you'd expect a congressional subcommittee to be very interested in. Because according to Chinese government records, Philip Qiu, or Qiu Feili, as he's also known in Chinese records, has spent his career moving through some of the more remarkable corners of the Communist Chinese Party's security apparatus. And I don't use the word remarkable as a compliment here. He started out as a detective for the Shanghai Public Security Bureau's criminal investigation team. Now that sounds like a normal cop job, and if you squint real hard, you can almost convince yourself it is. Except the Shanghai Public Security Bureau doesn't answer to a city council. It answers to China's Ministry of Public Security, a state security apparatus that handles policing, domestic intelligence, and political control all under one roof. So no, this isn't Shanghai's version of Barney Fife. This is the beginning of a career inside the machine. Hey, if you like our videos and you haven't done so already, you should become a subscriber to the channel. You can hit that notification bell and smack that like button, because it helps us get our message out to more people. And thank you. And that's just the starting point, guys. From there, we learned that Qiu has ties to at least 3 organizations connected to the CCP's United Front Work Department. If that phrase means nothing to you, here's the plain English version, courtesy of the bipartisan U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission. The United Front is a system Beijing uses to co-opt or pressure people and organizations outside the party into serving Chinese interests. A 2026 commission brief goes a step further and notes, rather calmly for something this alarming, that relationships built through United Front work can end up feeding intelligence straight back to China's security services. One of Qiu's posts landed him on the executive committee of the Shanghai branch of the All-China Federation of Returned Overseas Chinese, itself tied to the United Front. He's also reportedly served as honorary chairman of the Hong Kong Immigration Department Staff Association and helped organize events introducing Hong Kong students to Shanghai SWAT personnel. Which, again, not exactly the resume of your average building-buying philanthropist, right? Now, here's my favorite part, and I promise you, I'm not making this up. For most people, graduate school means seminars, group projects, and a thesis defense you'd rather forget. For Qiu, according to a university announcement cited in the investigation that was done, it apparently meant receiving special forces training while enrolled in a master's program at Shanghai Jiaotong University, along with participation in something called a combat-themed exercise. I'll let that university speak for itself, because you genuinely cannot write satire better than this. They said, quote, classmate Qiu Feili, who has undergone special forces training, served as a commander in the Red-Blue battle and not only directed his troops to successfully capture enemy positions, but also killed 1/3 of the opposing forces with 42 shots, achieving the best individual sniper record. He's a sniper, guys. 650 feet from the Oval Office. Take a second with that. Yeah, that's not a LinkedIn humble brag. I mean, that's a university bragging that their grad student is a crack shot in mock combat. Meanwhile, a 2024 University of New Haven Instagram post describes his background a little more modestly, simply noting his career as a detective in the criminal investigation team in Shanghai. Funny how that phrasing leaves out the sniper bit. And if you're wondering how a man with this resume feels about the Chinese Communist Party, he already answered that back in 2021 in a quote translated to, "The CCP is like a kind but firm parent." I'll leave that for you to sit with. Now, to be fair, and I try to be fair, even when it physically pains me, none of this proves that anything illegal is happening inside that building. It's entirely possible this is a very well-connected man with an eccentric hobby of buying real estate near federal landmarks. Entirely possible. But it's also exactly the kind of thing that makes people who used to do this for a living raise their eyebrows a bit and sit up a little straighter and start making phone calls. Bryan Dean Wright spent years as a CIA operations officer. He now hosts the Wright Report podcast, and he laid out in plain terms exactly why a property in this location matters to an intelligence service. Quote, "This property allows access for big splashy intel ops, as well as for more classic ops, like a listening post or Stingray-like systems to collect phone calls, text messages, and digital exhaust. That's all great for collecting targeting information for later bump or recruit targets out in the world who otherwise work inside a key U.S. government building." And think about that. I mean, that alone should get your attention, right? But Wright didn't stop there. And this next part is where the story stops sounding like a real estate footnote and starts sounding like the opening scene of a movie you'd assume was too far-fetched to be real. Quote, "But what's especially alarming are emerging ops that properties like this allow, like hidden drone swarms or shipping container missiles. This kind of property is where the next 9/11 will come from. It's coming." Now, let's be responsible about that quote, because I know exactly how it's going to get clipped and blasted around the internet in the next 24 hours. That is Bryan Dean Wright's assessment of the risk. It's not proof that anything is happening right now on that 15th floor. Nobody has produced drones. Nobody has produced missiles. Nobody has found a listening device bolted to the 9th floor. What we actually have, provably, on the record is a man with an extraordinary background in Chinese state security who now controls a 9-story building with a clear line of sight toward some of the most sensitive real estate in the country. The House Select Committee on the CCP has its own description of how operations like the United Front typically function, calling it a blend of engagement, influence activities, and intelligence operations that Beijing uses to shape foreign policy and gain access to advanced foreign technology. Now, read Qiu's resume again with that sitting in the back of your mind, and suddenly this building purchase looks a whole lot less like a coincidence and a whole lot more like a pattern. So here's where this leaves us. A man tied to Chinese public security, the United Front, sniper training, and a personal fondness for describing the Communist Party as a firm but kind parent, now owns a building 650 feet away from the White House. I mean, maybe that's nothing. Maybe he really is just a real estate hobbyist with an unusual CV. Or maybe, and I'd argue this is the more honest read of the evidence, maybe this is exactly what it looks like, and somebody in a position to do something about it needs to start asking questions immediately. I mean, like now. Either way, that's not a story that should be sitting quietly in property records. That's a story federal authorities ought to be looking into, and soon. And are the Democrats helping them? All right, so tell me what you think about this in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.